guys here with another episode of Trainer Confidential. Here with Donnie. How you doing tonight, Donnie?
How's it going, man? Doing all right, man.
Doing okay, doing okay. So
Yeah.
we'll start off a little bit of news so far for the week. Not really much. I mean, gossip and hearsay and stuff really is all about the news for bodybuilding right now. But one of the big topics is why Derek ain't doing the Arnold. Some people are saying, well, he doesn't think he can beat Nick Walker, and that's why he's not doing it. I mean, really, who cares? But that's the news for the week anyway.
You know, if he doesn't see him at the Arnold, he's going to see him at the Olympia anyway.
That's right.
You can't. You can't. I'm not going to go into this. Derek's got his reasons.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is this: I whatever I support whatever reason it is. It doesn't, whether he's going to do it or not. That's fine. He's already solidified himself. In bodybuilding and stuff.
Yeah.
But I just think typically an Arnold Classic is something that you have to have. It's got to be in your portfolio and stuff. And I don't think I think they don't even have 212, so he hasn't done it. And if he does, if he doesn't, that's so big. But it's just
he's young.
It's just one of those things.
He's young. He's just, I mean, he's making an impact already, and he's young.
Right.
So it's like, but so is Walker.
Right.
So
and all I'm saying is, I would do it. It's just a matter of mindsets. That's all. But yeah. And I think that's all that's going on right now is everybody's just rehashing that.
Yeah. So so today our topic, you guys, is we're going to talk about Mike Mentzer today.
Mm-hmm.
This is Golden Area Bodybuilding. This is what Donnie grew up watching and involved in. Mike Mentzer means a lot to me. When I finally, of course, I found Arnold first. He was the first one, and then as I started learning about bodybuilding, I found Mike Mentzer. I'm like, man, this guy, he's like, he just the way he talked, I could understand it and it made sense to me. And so I started following what his principles were, his training principles and all that. And but basically, in a nutshell, he came up with he didn't come up with HIIT training, but he perfected HIIT training. Well, I wouldn't even say perfected, but he made it more well known.
Let's say he personalized it.
Yeah, and he called it heavy duty.
Right.
So I think we'll start off with a little bit about the history of him, and I'll show you guys some stuff here. Just start off with that. Alrighty. Okay, so here we go. Here's Mike Mentzer here. And here's his stats and stuff. So he was in the 70s and 80s. 1970, I believe he started bodybuilding. So he's 225, 235, but the guy had a phenomenal physique. He was just and he never won an Olympia, and we'll get to that too.
Actually, he did.
He did?
And yes, in the 1978
okay.
It was the 1979 Mr. Olympia.
I thought that was
two divisions. It was kind of like Frank Zane won one division and he won the heavyweight division.
Okay.
And Frank Zane won the overall. Okay. And he saw that as a big slap in the face. And the thing about it is that on that one, there's 2 times he scored a perfect 300. Okay. And that was a year before in that universe. And that's what really solidified for him is when he scored the perfect score of 300 at that Mr. Universe and stuff, because that was the first time it had ever happened, and then it happened again when he won the heavyweight division in the Olympia, and yet you lose, to the other, to Frank Zane for the overall. And that really, really, really rubbed in the wrong way. And I was kind of scratching my head too, because I think I was like 18 at the time. And I'm like, wait a minute, he scores 300. He scores a perfect 300, yet he still loses. That, Frank Zane didn't score 300 and he scored a 300, but yet Frank Zane, won the overall, over him. And so that was something that really really rubbed in the wrong way. And then you go to that 1980, right after that, you're going to the 80 Olympia. And then that's when I guess that was just the ultimate slap in the face right there.
So I'll get to the 1980 Olympia in just a sec, but yeah, there was two divisions then, and actually that's what the dispute was about the 1980. There were 16 contestants at and 15 of them said, "Hey, we want to do all one open class." Arnold was the only one that said no. And so there was a big stink about that. And Mike had gotten up at one point. I forget who the guy is, but Arnold was basically yelling at a guy in there. And Mike got up and said, you can't treat him that way. And then that just rubbed Arnold the wrong way completely. And there was almost a fight over it.
Right.
At the
They almost came to
fisticuffs.
fisticuffs. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll just go right in that right now. Here's there's a little fight there. Apparently, from what Mike said, Arnold sat right down and shut up, and he ended up saying, "Okay, let's go for it." So he ended up not objecting to that the open division. So it was open that year. So the year before there was two divisions. That's why because I thought that was a typo at first, but I guess it's not because yeah, there was two divisions that year. Here's the 1980 lineup right here, and I mean, my eyes tell me everything here, and it's definitely open for discussion on who really won that show. Arnold obviously won it, but there was some politics involved there, and I mean, Mike actually he placed fifth.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, so here's the lineup here. Arnold got first, Chris Dickinson, Frank Zane, Boyer Coe, and then Mike Mentzer. Yeah, fifth place. I just don't see that. But anyway, at any rate, what had happened to Mentzer at this point was after that 1980 Olympia, he never got over it. And what ended up, he just, well, it just went all bad for him at that point. Well, so basically 1980 rolls up, he loses that. Because of the stink in there, he was getting paid by Joe Weider, and Joe Weider's paying him, and he had an income. Basically, after that, he had no income. He had nothing going on. A little bit of magazine work he was doing, and just everything went downhill from there for the guy. I mean, he lost his he started working for Workout Magazine, and he had a thing going there. And while he was doing that for a while, Weider had picked him up again, I think in 1982, and he wrote some stuff, but it didn't last long. And so then he got into doing the next magazine, Workout Magazine, and that ended up going down. His dad died, and his wife left him all at the same time, and the guy he had a mental breakdown. And yeah, so he was pretty much out of commission from that point all the way till 1990. Yeah, where he met Dorian Yates, and him and Dorian Yates worked together with the heavy duty training and stuff. So he redeemed himself in the end. But I mean, the guy had a lot of stuff happen to him. His mom died. Was it 1971? Yeah, the guy just had an awful lot of stuff happen to him. What do you remember from back then?
So, I first I first heard about Mike Mentzer in 1975. That's when I was 15 at the time. But at that time, they just had the Mr. America, and Robbie Robinson was just on fire. I mean, he was a Mr. America winner. And at that point, as far as within the country, the Mr. America was the show. I mean, if you're an amateur and you're in that AAU Mr. America, boom, that is the one. You win that show, you're pretty much set. I think Mentzer got third in that particular show, So he was like on my radar a little bit, but in 76 he ended up winning it. Okay, and that's when the articles start coming out. He started getting some magazine coverage. You start finding out a little bit about him. And he connected with me because I'm 16 years old, I'm in high school, and I'm going to gym, but I got school and all the other stuff, and he opened it up. They did an interview. Hey, look, I'm in medical school. I don't have time to do a lot of, these 3-4 hours worth of training and stuff, which is what I was into at the time, because that's what Robbie did. And that's what Arnold did. And everybody else did, but that struck a chord with me. So, he's right, because you can relate, because he's a student, I'm a student, and I just don't have time for a lot of 2, 3, 4 hour training sessions,
Yeah.
and so that's when things started. I really started listening to him and stuff, and then in the 77 he won the North America, okay, and then he did the Universe, but he lost to Cal Scalak. So there was things where he had this momentum and something would just happen, and he would have these crap placings. Me personally speaking, I thought he won. I was watching it on NBC Wide World of Sports. I remember that, and he lost to Cal Scalax, But the following year in 78, he won that Mr. Universe, and he was the first bodybuilder. I think this is the Olympia at the heavyweight division was his signature win, but it was his highest win. But that Mr. Universe, he was the only bodybuilder ever score a perfect 300. Okay.
Okay.
And so that was the deal. It wasn't the mere fact that he won it, because actually he kind of dominated it, but he scored a perfect 300. And at the bodybuilding sphere at that time, that was a big deal. That's like a holy grail and stuff. And so that's what really solidified it. That's when people really started listening to him, because the dude scored a perfect 300.
Yeah.
Whatever he's doing has got to be, it's got to be great. It's got to be terrific and stuff. And that's when it really started taking off, that heavy duty. And the thing about it is once you just peel it back, it's pretty simple. It's basically what he does. He uses all the training principles in the heavy duty system are already in existence. It's not like people weren't doing these things. They just weren't doing them in the combinations that he was doing them in. They did some rest pauses and stuff, and did some negatives, and they didn't do it all the time and stuff. But Mike, he kind of his principle, his system kind of honed in on these basic training principles: force reps, negatives, and rest pauses. And so the thing about it is this. Me personally speaking, I don't do the whole scope of it, but I do mainly rest pauses.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to be really big into force reps, but force reps, you need somebody to be there with you and stuff. And so after he lost to Arnold, after that, he faded. And I can see it, because the thing about it is this. Remember now, the Olympia prior, he won the heavyweight division with a perfect score of 300. How do you lose the overall? I mean, it's like a foregone conclusion, You're gonna win the overall, because I'm pretty sure Zane didn't score 300. Apparently he didn't, because he's never mentioned it, and yet he loses. And then the Olympia happens. That's what really broke it. You see what I'm saying? A lot of people think that that was basically the straw that broke the camel's back, is what it was. I'm pretty sure Mentzer would have had thicker skin if he was really rocking and rolling, because he did have momentum going into,
he was pretty excited at that point. I mean, he had
the momentum. He had won 2 shows. He had, annihilated, the competition with the previous show. And then this happens with Cal Scalak. Okay, not a problem. We'll go ahead and go to the Olympia. And then he goes to the Olympia, and he gets 5th.
Yeah.
And so he's thinking, hey, I'm done.
Yeah, there was a handful of guys that stopped competing all because of that.
Yes, Tony Emmett, Roger Walker, some of the people in that lineup they're the ones that they just walked away with it. And they just walked away from it, and there was a bit of a lull in the sport from my perspective. Because we had another big event prior to that, and we won't go into that a little bit. There was another Mr. America. I think I told you about it before. Tony Pearson, that Mr. America. That shook the community a little bit. And then we had this thing in 1980, where we lost some good bodybuilders, just decided not to compete anymore.
So, Mike Mentzer's training, the heavy duty training, for you guys who don't know, and I'm going to put some links in the description on his training, because you can find it online and stuff, but it's the same kind of training we do. The only thing I think it works perfectly. I think it's great. I just don't think it's enough when you're developed. You know what I mean? Because we do a little bit more than that. We don't, I mean, Mike Mentzer, he'd go in there and he'd do one set of leg extensions, superset that with squats, or a giant set of squats, leg extensions, and leg press, and that was all he did for legs, which is great to, create size. But to once you have that size to really get that definition, you got to work at a few more different angles. You know what I mean? But there's a fine line of where, are you overworking? Are you actually doing damage? Are you building? Are you, you know what I mean? So there's a fine line of that with the volume and how much you should do and how much you shouldn't do. And you just got to let your body's going to tell you that. And are you growing or are you not growing? Are you looking better? Or are you not looking better? But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's the only thing we do a little different is we do a couple more exercises, right?
So I mean, there's certain principles that are designed, like burns and stuff like that require a lot of volume, and of course rest pauses, you're allowed to handle more weight, and we add more exercises. We hit more exercises, but the concept, we're still using the same principle.
Same principle.
And like I said, there's nothing completely proprietary about Mike Mentzer's system other than the systems that he used, the principles that he used are designed to do just that anyway. They're hit. Hit is just built into it, whereas, people may do like descending sets, and people may do burns and all this other stuff, with a lot of volume. He's just trying to recruit as many fibers as he can, and then he moves on to the next one. We do the same thing. It's just like I said, we do a little bit more volume, and he was only training like 3 days a week. We train 5 days a week. So the thing is I like to, I find it hard training more than 2 muscle groups.
Yeah.
And as just because I've been training 1 muscle group per day for years, And so the thing about it is this, what there are probably very few people that are actually using his entire system, his entire concept, meaning you should only be training probably no more than 3 days a week. Okay. Tops, no more than 3 hours a week. As a matter of fact, what he was saying in one of his interviews and stuff, with me, I believe in short, intense workouts and stuff, but I want to hit each individual muscle group. So I know he's got to be training multiple muscle groups, and I like to give each muscle group my undivided attention. And, but if you're training your entire body or just half of your body, by the time you get to that second muscle group, you've already kind of lost your concentration a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And, I'll bring up some of his, stuff here. Actually, he did. So here's what a Monday looked like for him here, for the legs. And so he did legs, chest, and triceps all in one day. But I mean, Larry Pollock lived with him for a while,
right?
And he said when he lived with him, because when he met Mike Mentzer, he met him in the gym and asked his buddy, "Well, who's this guy?" And he said, "Oh, well, that's Mike Mentzer." And apparently he was in his rut at that point. He had no muscle. He had a beer belly.
Right.
He was just out of shape. And so, hey, you're Mike Mentzer. And Mike Mentzer said, "Hey, why don't you come live at my house and I'll train you?" So, okay. So he goes over there and lives, and he started training with him. He said in 3 months, he just blew up completely off that training. Not Larry also blew, but I mean, Mike Mentzer got, he said pro status in 3 months, but it's muscle memory.
He was probably, and there were a couple of people like that. And a lot of people talk about Kevin Levrone, how he has that ability to do that, but basically that's basically what it is. He's just, he was one of those people. It just didn't take much, I mean, and they weren't doing crazy cycles back then neither and stuff.
No, as a matter of fact, he was asked what they took, and they said they took MPP, 300 milligrams a week. That's it. Nandrolone. So which is, it's crazy, but that's what they did. And so, also another Arnold, he for that 1980 Olympia, he only trained for 8 weeks for that.
Yeah, actually, he was getting ready for Conan.
Yeah.
He was actually getting ready for Conan is what it was. And he started, looking really, really, really good and stuff. And and people are like, hey, I don't know, why don't you think about you got the Olympia in a few months, man. Why don't you think about doing the Olympia and stuff? And I don't know whether he was like, no, I don't want to do that. I don't know all that stuff, but eventually he got in it, and the rest is history and stuff.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so I don't know. I look highly of that guy. I like his style of training. I mean, it's like you told me a long time ago. You're going to find when you get older, you're going to find a lot of different training techniques and styles and things you do, and you're going to make it your own in the end, and you're going to have a little bit of everything, and some stuff you might not do no more because it didn't work. And that's what's cool about the sport is not everything is going to work for you. It's going to work for him. It might not work for you. And and you just got to try it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Move on to something else. Simple as that.
Right. So yeah. So in essence, so we use, components of the heavy duty system. We do, because we do a lot of hit. Anybody that engages a lot of hit, they're using some form. They're using some of the components of that heavy duty. So you don't necessarily have to use the entire. We're just plugging some things, some systems, some principles that we use, primarily that rest pause, and it's just a big part of our system. So yeah. So I think what you can say about Mike Mentzer is that he's influenced. His principles, his system has a big influence on the way a lot of people train. I wouldn't necessarily say everybody's using heavy duty, no, but I will say that heavy duty has influenced, a lot of training and stuff.
Sure. Yeah. I have a hard time believing that any bodybuilder out there is actually only putting in 3 days a week for a workout. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't think that happens anymore. And back then it hardly ever happened. Him and a couple other guys do it. I mean, his brother did it, but and Larry also said that, because he was asked, well, how did he train? Was it like, and he was just hardcore in everything he did, lift heavy as possible. He went to absolute failure, period. Like there was no, and he would preach, you might think it's failure, but it's not. You still got more, and that's how he trained.
Well, we have indicators when we know we're there.
Yeah.
And towards the end, especially when we're doing the 20s, and let's say that bench press is on the tail end, or that Smith machine bench is on the tail end, and you try to get that initial load off, and you can barely budget. Whereas if we had did it earlier, you probably would have knocked out about 8 or 9.
Yeah.
That's when you know.
Yeah.
That's when you know.
The other thing he was talking about hard workers, he said Tom Platz was the hardest worker he's ever seen in the gym. Tom Platz, I guess when he trained, he was just he was the hardest worker.
Platz he's a combination of hit and volume. I mean, his volume is his hit. I mean, he would do, and I have to do some to a certain. He would do like 100 reps of something. I mean. Geez. That's just it's in. I do some of that now because I can't do deep leg work anymore. So I have to do time under tension with a lot of reps and stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah. We're talking about, 15, 20 plates for about 110 reps or something like that. Yeah. And it's just, it's in, and so that is something else. I'm telling you,
it is not easy. Not there's nothing easy about anything bodybuilding, but that's just sheer torture, is what it is. I'm not gonna lie.
I miss those deep hack squats when I'm right around about 70 reps. I say, hey, put on another 4 or 5 plates, and I'll try to go about 10 to 12. I'll go. Right. This is getting ridiculous right here, dude.
Yeah. Well, it's effective though. It definitely works. So Mike ended up dying. He died June 10th, 2001 from a heart attack.
Heart.
And what initially happened to him? 1970. Go ahead.
So now he did an article. He did an article, and basically what he was saying, you remember he was doing the writing, for the magazines and stuff, and he's that's the primary reason why he was taking a lot of amphetamines, because he was just grinding out article after article. He was up like 2-3 o'clock in the morning and stuff, and he'd hit the amphetamines and stuff, and just to keep him going. So,
Yeah.
and he's like, well, I didn't really have a grasp on how adverse of an effect the amphetamines would have on his heart, but
Well, the guy, I mean, he wanted to be a psychiatrist. That's what he was going to school for. And he ended up he got into philosophy. And that's where his whole philosophy on training, he made training. And actually, Arthur Jones, I think he's the creator of Nautilus, right?
Yeah.
Arthur Jones, he met Arthur Jones. See, it was 19,
it's the late 70s, mid 70s, actually.
Yeah, so anyway, he met him, and Arthur is the one that got him into the HIIT training. Basically, Arthur just talked his ear off all this science that had to do with lifting weights, and Mike's like, "Whoa, I like this." And then he got into that HIIT training. He ended up working for Arthur also and designing some Nautilus machines.
Because when he was in the Air Force, just apparently when he was in the Air Force, he was training the conventional dogma at the time. He was training like 2 hours, lots of volume and stuff. That's how you train in the Air Force.
Yeah.
And you're right. When he ran into art, then that's when he got introduced to heavy duty training.
Yeah.
And it wasn't called heavy duty at the time. I'm pretty sure, they
Nautilus system.
Right. Yeah. They were using rest pauses. They were using force reps. They were using negatives, and they were probably doing them in combination. And it's like, okay, so what would it be, and he just came up with
Yeah. I think Arthur Jones called it the Nautilus system is what he called it or something like that. And the other, I mean, that guy, his life, jeez. So after his brother found him, Ray found him dead. His brother died 48 hours after that too.
Right. Refused to go to dialysis.
And his brother had kidney problems anyway. He just had.
Right. His brother was on dialysis.
Yeah.
Ray was on dialysis. Yeah. And
horrible story.
And after he lost Mike, I mean, he just, I guess he just lost resolve because he would not go do dialysis.
Yeah.
He stopped. And that's a death sentence. So
yeah, it's too bad. It's an interesting story, you guys. If you want to learn about Mike Mentzer, like I said, I'm going to put some links up here for you to check it out. He's also got some tapes that you can find on YouTube. I've listened to all of them. They're long. They go everything it has to do with nutrition, bodybuilding, the principles. I mean, he breaks this down into a philosophy. He breaks it down into a philosophy, which is I understood it better that way. So it worked for me. So anyway, he's just Mike Mentzer. Check him out. I think that's all we got for tonight, you guys. Good show. Like and subscribe. If you guys have any comments about this, put it down there, and we'll see you next week. See you later, Donnie.
Yeah, you will, man.